уважаемые коллеги.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues and guests. Today is the 29th of March, 2021. It's 3 o'clock Moscow time. And let us start our session. Let me declare open a session of the Dissertation Council for the Defense of Thesis by Felsendorff Olga Vladimirovna for the degree of Candidate of Psychological Science, Academic Specialty 190005, Socio-psychology, on the theme Socio-psychological peculiarities of women with the risk of addictive behavior in the sphere of fitness training, by the order of Academic Secretary of St. Petersburg University, Alexander Valentinovich Gnotov, of the 25th of January 2021, number 458/1, me, Gureva Svetlana Zahodovna, Doctor of Psychological Science, Professor of the Department of Social Psychology of St. Petersburg University, was appointed Chairman of this Dissertation Council. Other members of the Dissertation Council were appointed with the same order. Let me introduce them to you. Shulkova Olga Yurievna, Doctor of Psychological Science, Acting Head of Department of Medical Psychology and Psychophysiology of St. Petersburg University. Vaknin Yelena Evgenievna, Doctor of Psychological Science, Professor of the Clinical Psychology and Psychological Assistance Department of the Psychology Institute of Russian State Pedagogical University, named after Herzen. In the remote access mode, we have Pachebut Ludmila Georgievna, Doctor of Psychological Science, Professor of the Department of Social Psychology of St. Petersburg University. Ludmila Georgievna, can you see and hear us? Ludmila Georgievna, can you hear us? Yes, I can hear you, but not very well. What should I do? Can you see us? Can you see us? What should I do? I can hardly hear you. Okay, now I can hear you. Okay, now you can see and hear us. Thank you. Also, remote access mode, we have Dr. Rory Reid, Doctor of Philosophy, University of California, Los Angeles, United States of America. Dr. Reid, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Спасибо большое.
Also, the degree applicant is present. Felsendorff Olga Vladimirovna. Also, at this session, the academic advisor of the applicant is present, Yegorov Alexey Yurevich, Doctor of Medical Science, Professor of the Psychiatry and Addiction Department of St. Petersburg University. To improve the quality of connection, dear colleagues working in the remote access mode, switch off your telephones, but please remember to turn them on when you're given the floor. Let me also inform you that today our session is broadcast online at St. Petersburg University on St. Petersburg University website. The speeches are being simultaneously translated from Russian into English or from English into Russian as appropriate. During the live broadcast of the Dissertation Council session, at the moment an email is currently displayed to which all the listeners may send their opinions and questions to the degree applicant online regarding her thesis and the current scientific discussion of her speech, and thus take part in the scientific discussion. These questions shall be forwarded to me by our technical support department, and I shall present them during the discussion. Questions should be related strictly to the applicant's speech and the content of her thesis, and it's necessary to include full name, position, and name of employer of the author of the question. Questions not related to the scientific discussion of the thesis, the text and assessment of the thesis itself, and unanimous questions shall not be presented. According to the order of awarding at St. Petersburg University, academic degree of Candidate of Science and Doctor of Science, approved by the local regulations of St. Petersburg University, hereinafter the order, a session of the Dissertation Council shall be considered competent if at least 2/3 of the appointed members are present, but not less than 4 persons. Our council consists of 5 members. All 5 are present, including 2 council members in the remote interactive mode. Audio-visual contact has been established with all the council members. Thus, we have the quorum. Let me set forth the following procedure of today's council session with approximate duration of 2 hours. Let me introduce the procedure and the time frame. Summary report of the chairman on documents submitted by the applicant and answers to possible 5 questions, approximately 5 minutes. Summary report of the degree applicant outlining the key points of her research, approximately 15 minutes. Questions to the degree applicant, strictly on her report, not more than 2 answers per each question, and answers, no more than 5 minutes. Thank you. Speeches of all the council members in turn with their assessment of the dissertation and the applicant's speech with questions and suggestions to the applicant, approximately 10 minutes for each speaker. Speech of the chairman with her assessment, approximately 10 minutes. Answers of the degree applicant to questions and remarks of the council members, not more than 20 minutes for all the answers. Open discussion, questions at will of the attendees with summaries of their opinions and of specific questions and suggestions to the applicant, but strictly on the theme of the study. No more than 2 minutes for each speaker. At that, all the speakers are kindly requested to register themselves and introduce themselves in full before speaking. After that, the chairman shall present questions to the applicant sent during the discussion and broadcast of the session at St. Petersburg University website. Let me inform you that written questions that take more than 2 minutes shall not be presented. Answers of the applicant to these questions and speech of the academic advisor, Yegorov Alexey Yuryevich, approximately 3 minutes. Discussion of the council members before voting of the defense results. For that period, the broadcast sound shall be switched off. Open individual voting. The chairman shall count the votes and the results shall be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Making decision on awarding or not awarding the degree to the applicant and closing remarks of the degree applicant. 2 minutes. Dear colleagues, do you have questions or objections to this procedure? If you have no objections, let us proceed to the procedure. First of all, I invite you to switch off your mobile phones. And dear colleagues, working in the remote access mode, so please keep your phones switched on in case we need to contact you in a case of there's a technical emergency. So, well, let me start the session. A summary report of the chairman, a thesis by Felsendorff Olga Vladimirovna for the degree of Candidate of Science in Psychology, Scientific Specialty 190005 Socio-psychology on the theme Socio-psychological features of women with risk of addictive behavior in fitness, was accepted for defense by the order of the Academic Secretary of St. Petersburg University, Alexander Valentinovich Gniotov, on the 20th of January 2021, number 3868/1. Felsendorff Olga Vladimirovna wrote her thesis at St. Petersburg University under the guidance of Doctor of Medical Science, Professor of the Department of Psychiatry and Narcology at St. Petersburg University, Yegorov Alexey Yuryevich. A number of publications which set forth the main scientific findings of the thesis, according to the enclosed list, is 4. In peer-reviewed journals from the list approved by the Ministry of Education of Russian Federation, 2 publications. In journals indexed in scientific databases Web of Science and Scopus, 1 publication. The applicant submitted to the Scientific Secretary of St. Petersburg University, Niotov Alexander Valentinovich, a full set of documents for acceptance of the thesis for consideration and defense. All the documents comply with Article 12 of Section 3 of the Order. All the documents submitted by the applicant, according to the information I received from the curator of today's defense, are stored in the applicant's attestation file and are available from the officer of the Dissertation Council Activities Support Department, who is now present. Before giving the floor to the applicant, I have a question to the council members. Do you, dear council members, have any general questions to the applicant? And is it necessary to disclose and review the entire list of documents submitted by the degree applicant, please? No, there's no need to review the list. No questions, thank you. Then, let us give the floor to Olga Vladimirovna. You have 15 minutes for your presentation. Thank you very much. Dear Chairman of the Dissertation Council, dear council members, dear colleagues, let me introduce to you my report on socio-psychological characteristics of women at risk of addictive behavior in the field of fitness. Currently, fitness is becoming a mass social phenomenon. Approximately 60% of Russians do sports with one or frequency or other. Approximately 22% of Russians engage in fitness on a regular basis. The central place among the motives is occupied by motives related to standards and expectations of a person's appearance. According to research, among women in Russia, concern and dissatisfaction with her appearance, figure and body weight is increasing. Exercise and changing eating habits are the main strategies for changing the body. Despite the obvious benefits of exercising, there are also negative effects of intense, long hours of exercise that may lead to a special kind of non-chemical addiction, namely the exercise addiction or sports addiction. Research objective: to investigate the socio-psychological characteristics of women committed to active fitness, to identify a risk group for sports addiction or exercise addiction. Subject: attitudes towards own body image, dissatisfaction with own body, risk of sports addiction, risk of forming eating disorders, personality states and properties. The subject of the study were women committed to active fitness training. The main group included 113 women committed to active fitness training, aged 16 to 61. Mean age 38.9 years. Doing fitness from 1 time per week to 7 times. As for control, a group of women not engaged in fitness training was examined, which included 76 women aged 21 to 61. Mean age 42.4 years. In order to meet the goal, a number of objectives had to be met, the full wording of which are shown in slide number 4. Let me read them. To assess the risk of sports addiction in women committed to active fitness training compared to the control group. To examine the characteristics of body image attitudes in women committed to fitness training and compare them to the control group. 3. To determine the risk of eating disorders in women committed to active fitness training and compare it with the control group. 5. To examine the personality traits and states of women committed to active fitness training and compare them to the control group. 6. To investigate self-esteem of women committed to active fitness training and compare it with the control group. 7. Identify predictors of sports addiction. Compare the studied physiological characteristics in groups with different severity of sports addiction. And finally, to study the interaction of exercise addiction indicator with the following parameters: eating disorders, body image, personal parameters, and self-esteem. General hypothesis of the study: women committed to active fitness training have a significantly higher risk of sports addiction, which is associated with a number of socio-psychological characteristics. Specific hypothesis: women committed to fitness training have more pronounced general dissatisfaction with their own body and its individual parameters. Women committed to active fitness training have a significantly higher risk of eating disorders. Women committed to active fitness training have features of emotional sphere such as neuroticism, aggressiveness, depression, irritability, reactive aggressiveness, shyness, emotional liability, and masculinity. Women committed to active exercise are characterized by low self-esteem. The psychodiagnostic method aimed at studying the socio-psychological characteristics was implemented with a set of 10 techniques, including a specially designed socio-psychological questionnaire and 9 techniques, among which the exercise addiction determinator, food preference questionnaire, multi-component questionnaire of influence of the body image on quality of life, questionnaire of situational dissatisfaction, body image questionnaire by Skugarevsky and Sibuka, Freiberg personality question, and Demer Rubinstein self-assessment research method. And the study was conducted at 3 major fitness centers in St. Petersburg: Sculptures, Geo Wellness, and Fitness Palace between 2013 and 2017. Totally 189 women aged 16 to 61 took part in the study. Mean age was 36.5 years. The criterion for control groups was the frequency of exercise. The main group included women who regularly attended fitness training. The control group included women who did not attend fitness classes. Here you may see statements made for put forward for defense. Women committed to activity are at the risk of exercise addiction. Women committed to active fitness training show greater dissatisfaction with their body image as a whole and with its individual parameters. They reveal a more negative influence of body image on their quality of life, which is reflected in the low self-esteem and tendency to follow culturally imposed beauty standards, as well as greater dissatisfaction with their body image in various social situations, such as the need to be out in public, try on new clothes, weigh, talk to people yourself, or look at yourself in the mirror. Women committed to active fitness are at the risk of developing eating disorders. They are more likely to adhere to various diets, show concern about their weight, figure, and nutrition. The significant association between the risk of developing exercise addiction and eating disorders. The generalized profile of women committed to active fitness is characterized by a high degree of neuroticism, spontaneous aggressiveness, depression, irritability, shyness, reactive aggressiveness, emotional lability, masculinity. They also show increased situational and personal anxiety, along with a low self-esteem. Predictors of Specialisation are frequency of exercise and reactive aggressiveness. Characteristics were distinguished in the group with sports addiction symptoms from the risk group. For sports addiction are risk of eating disorders, general dissatisfaction with the figure in various social situations, spontaneous aggressiveness, reduced self-esteem, parameters in body. Characteristics between the 2 groups are with and without the risk of sports addiction are age, diet, risk of eating disorders, negative impact of image on quality of life, concern with being overweight. The study constructed a structural model of exercise addiction formation in women committed to active training based on 3 types of fitness addiction. Instrumental commitment, where fitness exercise is a tool to achieve a goal to harmonize life. Second, value commitment, where fitness is a value in its own. And super value commitment, where fitness is an independent value that distracts a person from other goals and activities in life. Here you may see the results of analysis of socio-demographic characteristics. According to the results of the analysis, it's obvious that most women are in the average age range between 22 and 60 years old and have a fairly high level of education and are single. Analysis of the degree of adherence to fitness demonstrates that women in the main sample exercise 3-4 times a week, but some exercise irregularly 8% or daily 12.4 or even more. Analysis of the degree of addiction by duration shows that most women have been doing fitness for more than 10 years. And let me introduce the main results of my study. Based on the results of comparing the central tendencies in the two groups, using the exercise addiction determinator, we may say that women who frequently play sports are at risk of exercise addiction compared to the control group. In our study, in the main group, 82 women have symptoms of sports addiction and the reason regarding exercise addiction, while in the control group, only 5 people have symptoms of sports addiction and not a single person is in the risk zone. Comparing the results of the body image questionnaire, it should be noted that the median in the main group is twice as high as in the control group, 6.3. Consequently, women in the main group experience more dissatisfaction with their appearance than women in the control group. The scores of the method influence of body image and quality of life are higher in the control group than in the main group. That is, for women actively doing fitness, body image is more negative upon the quality of life. Low scores show greater dissatisfaction with one's own body and propensity to follow culturally imposed beauty standards and assessment of one's weight as excessive. The results of this analysis according to the method questionnaire of situational dissatisfaction show that in the main group the situational dissatisfaction with the body image is higher than in the control group. According to the author, high scores in the test indicates tension in many social situations such as having to be seen, trying on new clothes, being weighed, communicating with people of the opposite sex and looking at yourself in the mirror. Statistically significant differences were found between all measures of the subscale of the methodology. The median of the appearance assessment subscale was high in the control group. Low scores on this scale reflect the general dissatisfaction with one's appearance. The scores on satisfaction with one's body were high in the control group. Low scores on this scale reflect dissatisfaction with certain aspects of the body, such as face, hair, buttocks, hips, legs, waist, abdomen, breasts, shoulders, muscle tone, weight or height. On 2 subscales, such as concern with being overweight and low self-esteem, the results in the main group are higher than in the control group. This means that women committed to sports have an increased sense of body and anxiety, which reflects the fear of being overweight, concern about controlling their weight, and fluctuations, diet and moderation, moderate eating. The food preference questionnaire was used to test the hypothesis of eating disorders. According to the results of the analysis, the comparison of the central tendencies, we may conclude that women who frequently play sports are at risk regarding manifestation of eating disorders compared to the control group. When comparing the samples according to the Freiburg personality questionnaire, a greater neuroticization of women engaged in sport was detected. Such parameters: neuroticism, spontaneous aggressiveness, depression, irritability, reactive aggressiveness, shyness, emotional lability, and masculinity were significantly higher. As shown in the table, women who actively attend fitness trainings have higher levels of both situational, personal, and anxiety. As can be seen from the figure in this slide, indicators of self-esteem of women engaged are significantly lower than those in the control group, such as the mental ability, the ability to do something with your own hands, appearance, body, and self-confidence. To identify the potential predictors of sports addiction, a group of women committed to active fitness training was divided into 3 subgroups based on addiction level. The first group, without the risk of addictive behavior, Group 1, with symptoms of sports addiction, Group 2, with the risk of addictive behavior, Group 3. Statistically significant differences in median frequencies were found between all the studied groups. That is, an increase in the risk of addictive behavior is connected with the need to increase the amount and intensity of exercise. Statistically significant differences found between all the groups allow us to attribute the parameter frequency of exercise to one of the predictors of sports addiction in our study. When comparing the 3 groups on reactive aggressiveness of the Freiburg personality questionnaire, aggressiveness scale increases from the first to the 3rd group, so the risk of sports addiction is associated with the increase in the reactive aggressiveness scale. The presence of statistically significant differences between the 3 groups in our study suggests that the reactive aggressiveness parameter may be a predictor of risk of sports addiction. Based on the data obtained in our study, we constructed a structural model of sports addiction in women committed to active training, the basis of which was the nature of addiction to physical activity. We distinguished three types of commitment to fitness training: instrumental commitment, where fitness exercise is a tool to achieve a goal to harmonize life; value commitment, where fitness is a value in its own; and super-stale commitment, where fitness is an independent value that distracts a person from other goals and activities in life. Based on this model, the following scenarios can be identified when women turn to fitness. First scenario: fitness exercise for health. Symptoms of addiction are minimal. In this scenario, women take fitness classes about twice a week for health purposes, often aim at improving or preventing health issues. Second scenario: fitness for the sake of exercise itself. Symptoms of sports addiction can be observed. Here, fitness acts as the end in itself. The frequency of exercise increases to 3-4 times a week. The need to increase the duration of exercise, a decrease in mood when it's impossible to attend a workout, and symptoms of reactive aggression are also found. On the one hand, women in this group have a greater regularity of attendance, and on the other, for them, fitness is not yet the main activity in life that determines their behavior. And finally, fitness is the dominant value. The risk of sports addiction emerges. The whole habitual life concentrates around fitness. Frequency of attendance increases from 4 to 10 or more times a week. Psychological traits that distinguish women engaged in this scenario, along with symptoms of reactive aggression, include dissatisfaction with the figure, both in general and social situations, increased risk of eating disorders, symptoms of spontaneous aggression, reduced self-esteem on the parameters of appearance and body. And so here we are facing the sports addiction. Let me present the main conclusions of the study. We found that women committed to active fitness trainings are at risk of sports addiction. We found that women committed to active fitness training demonstrate dissatisfaction with their bodies. It was confirmed that women committed to active fitness are at risk of developing eating disorders. We found that women committed to fitness were found to have a negative influence on the body and their quality of life. Generalized personality portrait of women committed to fitness training characterized by such properties as neuroticism, spontaneous aggression, depression, irritability, shyness, lability, masculinity, and heightened situational personal anxiety was revealed. We found that women committed to fitness have low self-esteem in such parameters as mental abilities, ability to do something with your own hands, appearance, body, and self-confidence, which in turn may lead to maladaptation. The main predictors of exercise addiction for women committed to fitness are frequency of exercise and reactive aggressiveness. Three types of fitness adherence in women have been identified: instrumental commitment, value commitment, and super value commitment. Thank you very much for your attention. That's all I have to say. Olga Vladimirovna, thank you. Dear council members, do you have any questions to the applicant regarding her presentation? Please. If we have no questions at this stage, maybe our colleagues working in the remote access mode have any questions at this point. Ludmila Georgievna, I see you have no questions. No questions. Dr. Raid, no. Since there are no questions, then please have a seat. And let us proceed to the Dissertation Council member speeches with assessment and questions to the applicant and external reviews, etc. I would like to ask the curator if we received any external reviews. There are no external reviews. Then let's follow the procedure. And since all the reviews were published at the university website, I suggest we don't read our reviews in full, but only focus on the key points or critical remarks. Is that okay with everybody? Yes, we are. Then let's start. I suggest we start with the first to give the floor to the professor of social psychology department, Ludmila Georgievna Pochebut. Welcome, Ludmila Georgievna. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you very well. My review to the thesis by Felsendorff, Olga Vladimirovna. The relevance of this study is determined by the growing interest in fitness in Russia. The author of the thesis set herself the goal to study the socio-psychological characteristics of women addicted to active exercise, to identify the risk group for sports addiction. Provisions submitted for defense correspond to the results obtained in the course of the study. Scientific novelty of this study lies in the complex analysis of socio-demographic and psychological factors. The theoretical significance of the study lies in identifying specific features of the concept of sports addiction as one of the form of non-chemical addictions, as a form of non-chemical addiction. The practical relevance of the study is beyond any doubt. Obtained results can be used for psychological counseling of women addicted to sports. The advantages of the thesis include, first of all, deep understanding of scientific literature on the theme of the study. Second, the choice and use of various study methods that correspond to the aim and goals of the study. 3. Detailed analysis of empirical results. 4. Classification of types of addiction to fitness. And finally, the practical orientation of the thesis. As a disadvantage, a drawback, I would like to mention the absence of psychological recommendations for women displaying symptoms of sports addiction and suggested methods of psychological and socio-psychological aid. The thesis by Felsendorff, Olga Vladimirovna, on the theme socio-psychological aspects of women addicted to active sports correspond to the main requirements set on the 1st of September 2016, number 6821/1, on the order of awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. And the degree applicant, Felsendorff Olga Vladimirovna, deserves awarding the degree of Candidate of Psychology, Specialty 190005, Social Psychology. Article 11 of the above-mentioned order has not been violated. Thank you for your attention. Lyudmila Georgievna, thank you for your review. The applicant may answer all reviews, all the questions together. I suggest the applicant to answer all the questions and comments in the end, if that's okay with everybody. Then let me give the floor to Dr. Reid, Dr. PhD, Assistant Professor of Psychiatry, University of California. Dr. Reid, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My specific comments were that I felt that the candidate has established the grounds for her research based on a good review, a comprehensive review of the existing literature. Indeed, she makes a compelling case that women are a vulnerable population worthy of consideration for her research questions. She also offers appropriate models of addiction to advance her case that people, in fact, can become addicted to behavior. For instance, she offers the interactive model of the exercise paradox as a plausible explanation for exercise addiction. Collectively, the purpose of this research and her hypothesis, they are clearly identified and explained in her dissertation thesis. In her research design, the candidate has selected relevant constructs for consideration in her study, specifically risks for addiction, emotional dysregulation, attitudes, various aspects of personality, and self-esteem. These characteristics allow for a nice, comprehensive analysis of the possible correlates of exercise sports addiction, and also allow for a predictive analysis of the risk factors, which I felt was particularly relevant. The candidate has also wisely selected psychometrically validated instruments to measure the constructs of interest. This study is also associated with statistical evidence, and it offers explanatory power in helping the reader understand why the participants are at risk and not merely devoted to exercise, but obsessed with fitness to compensate for body dissatisfaction, poor self-esteem, and personality features such as neuroticism. The collection of the data from the various fitness centers in St. Petersburg was impressive. It's remarkable, and it reflects a dedication on the part of this candidate to gather a larger than average sample size of a Russian population of women. The statistical analysis is appropriately chosen to answer the questions of the research, and the analysis of the variance of group differences on the variables of interest establishes the predominance of atypical scores on the study measures among her sample of women attending fitness classes. The personal portrait of women from the main sample is characterized by neuroticism, spontaneous aggressiveness, depression, irritability, reactive aggressiveness, shyness, emotional ability, situational and personality anxiety, as well as reduced self-esteem, both in general and in a number of individual parameters, in particular concerning body image. The group design for the research is appropriate. The data obtained support the basis for a structural model of developing sports addiction in women committed to fitness. The results are presented in a clear manner. The one concern that I did express, and this may be a minor concern, but nevertheless it's important, is that the candidate states in her data that it proves the assertions of her hypothesis. In one instance, the quote was, "This study proves that the risk of addictive behavior in fitness classes increases as well as the risk of eating disorders." I was given an English translation of this dissertation, which I might add is remarkably well written, given the fact that the candidate English is the second language for the applicant. And this may have been a mistranslation of a Russian word, but in a scientific research of this nature that is hypothesis-driven, it's not appropriate to use the word proves, but suggests that she might consider something of strongly supports as something less conclusive, if in fact that English translation is correct in applying the word prove. Elsewhere, the word prove is used to discuss the research of others. This should likewise be changed to support or provides evidence. So in conclusion, the results of this dissertation were well presented They consist of appropriate statistical analysis and offer a sophisticated interpretation of the scientific merit, which demonstrates a solid understanding of the research methods and mastering of this topic. This thesis demonstrates a significant amount of work by the candidate to deliver novel findings of quality research to the scientific community. The assertion that the pursuit of sports for health can in fact have addiction potential among women in fitness classes is relevant for the field of exercise fitness and more broadly behavioral addictions. In summary, this dissertation by the candidate, Felsendorff Olga, is complete, consistent with the expectations for a doctoral level research, and the findings offer a novel contribution to existing literature. Subsequently, I offer my recommendation without reservation that the dissertation presented for the candidate degree of psychological science be considered as meeting the requirements for the candidate dissertation on specialty 19.00.05, social psychology, and therefore be accepted. Thank you.
Спасибо большое. Спасибо.
Thank you very much. Let us give the floor to the next council member, Doctor of Psychology, Shilkova Olga Yurievna. Thank you, Svetlana Zakhotovna. Let me present my review to the thesis by Olga Vladimirovna Felsendorff. The relevance of the thesis is determined by widespread in the society significant social function of doing fitness and poor coverage of the psychological structure of this activity, individual and psychological factors that determine it, health risks and psychological adaptation. Analysis of these less studied issues, psychology of health and addiction, is covered by the thesis by Olga Vladimirovna Felsendorff. It makes it relevant and timely and open doors for individualized psychological work with the aim of prevention of addictive, self-destructive forms of behavior in women actively doing fitness. The overall goal of the thesis is to study the socio-psychological characteristics of women addicted to fitness, to identify risk group. Next, in my review, I mentioned that to achieve her goals, the author set herself hypotheses, the general hypothesis and specific hypothesis, and 7 research tasks, full implementation of which enabled the author to confirm this hypothesis. Obtained data are original as well as the theme itself and make a significant contribution to science, study the personality, adaptation and psychological aid to individuals at risk. In accordance with the tasks, the author developed a full-scale study program that included comparative analysis of a wide range of individual addictive behavioral values and other psychological characteristics of women doing fitness. Totally 113 subjects. The compared with women not doing fitness classes, and comparative analysis of psychological characteristics of women doing fitness with various intensity, and identifying with the help of statistics the most informative psychological predictors of sports addiction or risk groups, psychological maladaptation, women in need of psychological help. Thus, the study of the thesis is aimed at the study of unknown aspects of practical psychology with the aim of to assist a wide range of individuals addicted to sports and innate psychological behaviors which addicted to improvement of their bodies. The program of the study included 9 methods and techniques, and that enabled the author to study the risk of forming sports addiction, eating disorders, and various aspects of attitude to oneself and your body, its impact on the quality of life and peculiarity of the emotional state and personality structure in the compared groups. The methods of the study are fully described in Chapter 2. Advantages of the work. As was mentioned already, the study of relevant methods of statistics results are well described in Chapter 3 of the thesis, as well as conclusions and provisions submitted for defense reveal its scientific novelty and theoretical significance, which lies in the following. Scientific novelty and theoretical significance of the thesis are to be found in its theoretical and empirical parts. The analytical overview of international literature, which is 50 pages long, includes a detailed analysis of concepts and phenomenon relevant to the thesis theme. In the development of fitness as a social and cultural phenomenon, its polyfunctional nature. Also, the historical aspects, starting with the works of Alexander Lazursky, reviews the psychological attitude to oneself, the physical self. Also, in the context of contemporary body psychology, the content of addiction in the sphere of fitness and sports as forms of deviant behavior have been analyzed. In general, the analytical overview has scientific value in itself for social psychology, health psychology, and medical psychology. Also, I'd like to say that equally significant is the conducted discussion in the context of world literature of obtained results. Also, the scientific significance, almost all the empirical results of the thesis. Here we may mention statistically confirmed fact of risk of addiction to sports and risk of dysfunctional eating disorders in women actively doing fitness, the risk of psychological maladaptation combined with behavior and somatic spheres. The practical significance of the work of Olga Vladimirovna obviously evolves from obtained results, and as has been mentioned already, so I will not dwell on that, as well as the structure and completeness. Let me also say that these parameters fully comply with the requirements, and literature overview reflects analysis of 146 sources, 95 in foreign languages. As a whole, the thesis is written on a high scientific level and dedicated to little known and contains new results. I don't have any major critical remarks. I have some suggestions and questions and some minor comments. Speaking of suggestions, considering the mass nature and its social function described in the thesis, and little research done on this, considering psychological effects and considering the quality of this study, this work should be published in the form of a monograph. Among a great number of foreign and international concepts mentioned as the foundation, psychology, the health psychology is not used, even though in this sphere of psychology the such issues as the role of interiorization of the standard ideal body image are studied. And well, that's strange, because in the last guidelines published by Alexei Yurevich, your academic advisor, contains a whole chapter on that. So the question is, to what degree the methods such as determiner of exercise addiction, questionnaire of food preferences, and foreign methods for this study of body image can be applied to Russian female population? Have they earlier been used in national studies? If not, what is your opinion of their diagnostic potential? I have some technical comments as well applied to style inaccuracies, which contrast the excellent scientific language of the thesis. I shall not read them, but they do not affect the overall value of the thesis. Conclusion: the thesis by Felsendorff, Olga V on the theme Socio-psychological peculiarities of features of women with risk of addictive behavior corresponds to the main requirements set by the order on the 1st of September 2016, number 68/21/1 on awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. And the applicant, Olga Vladimirovna Felsendorff, deserves awarding degree of Candidate of Sciences of Psychology 190005 Social Psychology. Article 11 of the above-mentioned order has not been violated. Thank you. Thank you, Olga Yurievna, for your review. Now I'd like to give the floor to Doctor of Psychology, Professor Vaknin Yelena Evgenievna. Thank you for the opportunity to give my reflections on this work. And I always like it when students follow and develop ideas and concepts of their academic advisors. Alexei Yurevich. And of course, the work is certainly interesting and relevant because it touches upon such a theme as socially approved addictions, which is always open for discussion, not only among the scientific community, but among the general public. The growth of addictions, including socially approved addictions such as doing sports and food behavior, is a problem of social adaptation of individuals in the modern world. It's no secret that through mass media translated idea of women as objects of physical attractiveness increase the risk of developing emotional disorders, anxiety about one's appearance, dissatisfaction with the body image, and shame may provoke various forms of addictive behavior, from classical food disorders to strenuous exercise. Because of that, a thesis by Olga V. Felsendorff aimed at psychological risk factors in individuals actively involved in fitness is certainly relevant. Relevance of such study increases considering the popularity of fitness in Russia in the fall against fragmented research. Many studies of that type, much more studies have been conducted overseas. Novelty of the work lies in the complex social and psychological and experimental study of women addicted to fitness training. Along with assessment of addictive potential, the author assesses attitude to own body image of respondents, their personality profiles, self-esteem, and risk of developing food disorders. The theoretical significance has several aspects. First, the study increases the theoretical knowledge about psychology of addictive behavior, including sports addiction as one of the forms of non-chemical addiction. Secondly, the author creates a unique structural model of exercise addiction in women addicted to active training. The practical significance, in my opinion, has several aspects as well, and certainly is of interdisciplinary nature. On the one hand, results can serve as the basis for efficient psychological aid programs and used for psychological counseling of women at risk of sports addiction, food disorders, and dissatisfaction with own body. On the other hand, the data can be used for substitution therapy for people with chemical addictions, such as alcohol or drugs. Moreover, the results of the study can be used to develop study courses on addiction, as well as social, clinical, and sports psychology. Reliability of the results is supported by the use of contemporary methods, vast material and a large sample size, adequate use of statistics analysis and quality. Let me skip the description of the thesis, since my review has been published at the university website. Let me proceed to questions and points for discussion. Of course, the thesis by Olga Vladimirovna contains many visual aids in the form of figures and graphs which demonstrate the results. This always helps to perceive the text better. The work has been written in accordance with all the rules and requirements. The content of research has been summarized in 4 articles, including 3 articles in peer-reviewed journals. Let me focus on some points for discussion, which, in my opinion, result from the advantages of the work. First, the author relies on self-assessment of the respondents, of their physical self, and it would be interesting to compare the actual weight of these women with other indicators. Maybe there's a critical range of deviation from the norm where a risk of sports addiction emerges. Second, the author has not explored enough the impact of age on the risk of sports addiction, and the very range of the participants is quite broad, though of course the author says that 80% were middle-aged women, but 16 to 60, that's fairly broad. That is why it would be interesting to see at what age this addiction usually occurs, and maybe that question would help you result on some age periods which are highly sensitive for this form of addiction. Also, I'd like to mention that these comments should be seen as points for discussion and do not affect the overall positive assessment of the thesis. And it would also be interesting to see the risks, to compare the risk of sports addiction and self-assessment of women, and peculiarities and features of women who do sports professionally. And in conclusion, I'd like to say that the thesis by Felsendorff, Olga Vladimirovna, on the theme social features of women at risk with addictive behavior and fitness is a complete work which addresses a relevant for modern psychology scientific task connected with risk factors of addictive forms of behavior, including sports and food addictions. The work complies with the main requirements set on the 1st of August 2016 number 6821/1 on the order of awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University, and the degree applicant deserves awarding the degree of Candidate of Psychological Sciences, Specialty 190005, Social Psychology. Article 11 of the above-mentioned order has not been violated by the author. Thank you for your attention. Yelena Evgenievna, thank you for your review. Dear colleagues, let me present my review. I will drop the parts already mentioned by my colleagues, and let me proceed to the key points that I would like to mention and draw your attention. Certainly, we may see that the fitness market is growing fast. Thousands and thousands of women want to achieve unrealistic standards, apply great effort and spend lots of money to approach the ideal, but that's impossible. I liked the design of this work, the author's approach, and most of all, I like that the author is involved in the process and can explain very well what happens from the time an individual starts training and becomes addicted to fitness. I think I would like to say that though the work is interesting and relevant and touches upon important aspects of non-chemical addiction, I think the some changes in blood components, so people really become addicted, and but I did fitness myself. But what I would like to know, do you think the question is connected with the content of a thesis? Do you think that women who become addicted to fitness, is this because they have low self-esteem, high level of aggression, dissatisfied with their life and with themselves, and do these components increase as they do fitness, or fitness makes them lowers their self-esteem, makes them more aggressive, more dissatisfied, and more aware of their weight or their diet? Another question I would like to ask is this: could you please tell us when exactly this addiction starts? After several months, 6 months, 1 year, or 2 years? So which time period, and what indicators allow you to say that addiction has formed? Is this when duration of exercise increases, or frequency of exercise? When do you start talking about addiction? And the most important question I'd like to ask you as an expert in this field: what practical recommendations would you give to women in the two groups you described? Where and at what level could they get help to relieve this addiction, improve their self-esteem, and show them that life is good even if you don't when you don't exercise for hours? In conclusion, I'd like to say that the thesis by Felsendorff Olga Vladimirovna on the theme socio-psychological features of women at the risk of addictive behavior and fitness corresponds to the main requirements set on the 1st of September 2016, number 6821/1, on awarding academic degrees in St. Petersburg University. And the degree applicant, Olga Vladimirovna Felsendorff, deserves awarding the degree of Candidate of Psychological Sciences, Specialty 190005, Social Psychology. Article 11 of the above-mentioned order has not been violated. Thank you, dear colleagues. Now, Olga Vladimirovna, I would like you to answer questions and suggestions. Dear colleagues and dear council members, thank you for your detailed and constructive reviews, questions and suggestions. Let me answer your questions in the same order as they were presented. Dear Ludmila Georgievna, thank you for your review. I'd like to answer your comment about psychological recommendations. I would also like to answer the last question of Ludmila Zakharovna. What recommendations can we issue to women since this is a socially accepted form of addiction? All interventions may consist because addiction socially unaccepted, the consequences of which can be a very high set of social psychological help for women at risk of addictive behavior in their fitness may include the following activities. First, the cognitive behavioral therapy techniques such as time structuring, keeping an exercise activity diary to monitor where the individual is overdoing it, restructuring the cognitive distortions connected with fitness, and setting limits on the number of workouts per week, and moreover, finding alternative forms of exercise that will promote positive emotions. In addition, as therapy, auto training and relaxation techniques, and family therapy, improve family and parent-child relationship can be helpful to reduce time spent in fitness in gym. The therapy aimed at identification and reduction of harm from coexisting problems that led to compulsive fitness addiction. So this is a set of measures I would suggest or recommend to reduce the negative effects of addiction to fitness training. Next, Dr. Reed, thank you for joining this dissertation council and for your positive and detailed review. In response to your comment, I would like to say that the word proves in the English part is certainly a feature of translation. The English part has this study proves that the risk of exercise addiction in women addicted to active fitness training increases with the risks of eating disorders. Undoubtedly, the word proves should be replaced in the English translation with softer and less assertive word, such as the study further contributes to non-chemical addiction theory, or the findings support the existing theory about the secondary nature of sports addiction, where the risk of eating disorders increases along with the increased risk of sports addiction. Thank you again for your detailed analysis of the study and your time. Olga Yurievna, thank you for your comments and suggestions. Let me briefly answer. Thank you for high appreciation of the study and advice to publish a monograph. We'll try to do that in the nearest future. Indeed, it's true that data from health psychology are not present in my study. One of the main objectives is to study the factors of healthy lifestyle. Fitness is one of the main health-saving technologies, both in general practice and in our country. However, in our study, we consider the addictive potential of fitness, its pathological variants. Our study is at the interaction of several fields of psychology, among them social, medical, sports, and of course health psychology. In my future studies on the effects of fitness and psychological well-being of individuals, we will certainly address intensively developing health psychology. Let me talk you about the use of foreign techniques used in my thesis for the study of Russian female sample. The food preference questionnaire called EAT26. Originally, the technique was developed to develop preferences and behavior characteristics of potentials suffering from anorexia. Subsequently, its ability to identify parents suffering from bulimia has been shown. Skugarevsky conducted psychometric adaptation in the Belarus population, which allowed to state it's a reliable and valid instrument. There are also articles covering the experience of using this method on the Russian sample. For example, Meshkova and Nikolaeva conducted a study devoted to identifying the risks of eating disorders in female students. The authors also validated and adapted the Russian language version of the methods for further usage in research and diagnostic purposes. Well, next methods presented were tested on a Russian sample by Dr. Baranskaya, who adopted cash methodology. The body quality of life and dissatisfaction with body image in different situations were applied to a sample of 107 female patients of plastic surgery clinics. The average score is comparable with the average score obtained in our study, which indicates the dependence of self-esteem, the tendency to follow culturally imposed standards of beauty. The average score of beauty clinics in different situations feel negative, feel bad about body. And finally, the multi-component body response questionnaire was used for screening and is based on 6 criteria of Brown-Griffiths criteria adapted by Coverly-Wheel specifically for exercise addiction, which are internationally accepted. No formal validation of this methodology was performed, but in all the women at risk, we confirmed the presence of symptoms of sports addiction. We think that this questionnaire has great diagnostic possibilities and can be used in other studies to assess the risk of sports addiction. As for the comments on technical nature, we accept in the only in the first case it's okay to use the word predictors, and in the next 2 cases it would be more appropriate to use the word characteristics. When stating hypothesis, the sample of women committed to fitness training is compared with the sample of women not doing fitness, which is implied but not stated and should be added. And once again, let me thank you for technical and general comments, and we'll try to avoid inaccuracies of this kind in the future. Dear Yelena Evgenievna, thank you for your review and for points of discussion. Indeed, in our study, we did not measure the anthropometric indicators of respondents as well as the body index. However, a visual assessment at risk for sports addiction allows us to conclude that the weight of all subjects is within the normal range or even below the normal. No overweight women were identified among the subjects at risk for sports addiction. In future studies, we will definitely inquire about the actual body weight and BMI. With regard to the effect of age on the risk of exercise addiction, we should note that after dividing the main sample into 3 subgroups and comparing the mean values of the age parameter, we found as the risk of sports addiction increases, the age of respondents increases. In the group without risk of sports addiction, the average age was 30. In the group with symptoms of sports addiction, the average age was 36. And in the sports addiction risk group, the average age was 41. Such dynamics can be related to the fact that with the increase in age, the slowing of metabolism, increase of hyperdynamia due to predominantly sedentary lifetime, and possibly development a number of related diseases such as musculoskeletal, and doctors often recommend that women engage in recreational fitness, but in the process of exercise, under a number of circumstances and conditions, exercise addiction may occur. In addition, one of the possible reasons for active fitness training may be the desire to preserve youth and fight age-related changes. Thus, in our study, the sensitive period for sports addiction is the age after 40. And finally, let me answer questions asked by Svetlana Zakhotevna. I'd like to say that the question is still open. So, what came first? Women with particular personalities, and to answer this question, we need a long-term study to follow their personality. We use the cross-section method, so it's hard to say what happened first. Did they become addicted, or women with certain personality profiles are more prone to addiction? As for the indicators of addiction, there are criteria of sports addiction identified by Covey-Leville, who started to explore sports addiction, and these are internationally recognized. So the multifaceted training exercise that results in feeling ill, and these include tolerance to withdrawal symptoms. When a woman misses a workout, and then she needs same amount of exercise, or more exercise, or women they train to exercise harder, and a loss of control and desire to increase training. The time, most of the time, dedicated to physical exercise, conflict, reduction of significant activities such as recreational activities, because they get in the way of training. And exercise, women continue to exercise even after they become aware of psychological or physical problems. And as sports addiction is socially accepted form of addiction, all correction interventions and procedures can be, and addictions can result in socially unaccepted and with negative results. That's all I had to say. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Olga Vladimirovna. Dear colleagues, are you satisfied, all of you, with the answers? Ludmila Georgievna, are you satisfied? Yes. Dr. Raid, are you satisfied with the answer? Yes, I see you are nodding. Thank you. Dear Olga Yurievna, yes, I'm quite satisfied. Thank you. Dear Elena Evgenievna, yes, thank you. I'm also satisfied. Thank you. Is anyone present here willing to speak? I see nobody's willing to speak. So I'm asking the curator if we received any questions online. At the moment we receive no questions. Then let me give the floor to the academic advisor. Alexey Yurievich, please tell us about your applicant. Dear Chairman, dear Council members, I first met Olga Vladimirovna at the Department of Crisis and Extreme Situations in 2013 when she just gave birth and decided to do research, and she approached me as an expert on non-chemical addictions, and she said she wanted to explore this. I asked her what does she do, and So and when I learned that she works at 2 fitness centers, I thought that was a piece of luck for me, because before that, that was the very first study of this type, and then we started doing it together. Since the beginning, we developed the design of the study, the methods and techniques. Of course, we were guided by the international experience, and those works are also very few. If we look at methods, the data on sports addiction vary to 30, range is from 3 to 35%, so it all depends on how you diagnose it. So we made endless changes because validation at that stage was impossible. So we decided to interview our subjects on the basis of international recognized criteria. And I'd like to say that St. Petersburg University School she's a highly qualified psychologist, and she mastered these methods. And of course, we ran into challenges. So we had to recruit the control group, which was difficult. It's always hard to be a pioneer. I think Olga Vladimirovna did very well. She's a very responsible person, but she always doubts and always reflects on everything, which is good for a researcher. And she possesses a rare balance of these qualities. So thank you for your attention. Alexei Yurevich, thank you for your speech. Dear colleagues, is anyone willing to speak? Anyone present here? Or maybe we received questions via email? Very well. Then our discussion is over. And before we vote, let me ask the members of the Dissertation Council, do council members and the degree applicant have any comments or questions regarding the procedure of today's session? And Ludmila Georgievna, do you have any questions? Dr. Reid, do you have any questions? Comments? No. Thank you. Olga Yurievna? No, I don't have any questions. Elena Igorevna? No. Dear colleagues, as you see, we have no questions, no comments. Then let us proceed to voting. Now is 4:26 Moscow time, 4:26 p.m. Moscow time. Dear colleagues, before we vote, let me ask you, is it necessary for us to take a break to discuss the results with the sound switched off? Do we need a technical break? No, I don't think we need a break. No break. No, we don't need a break. Thank you. If we don't need a break to discuss the results, let us proceed to voting. At that, I shall ask each council member for his opinion individually and independently. Dear colleagues, the most crucial point of our session is coming. Please make sure we can all see and hear each other. Yes. Thank you. Well, I put the question of awarding to Felsendorff Olga Vladimirovna degree of Candidate of Psychological Science, Academic Specialty 190005 Social Psychology, to the open individual voting. Let me remind you that a decision of the Dissertation Council on awarding the academic degree shall be considered positive if more than a half, but not less than 3 members of the council members present voted for it, according to Article 23 of the Order. Dear Ludmila Georgievna Pochebut, what is your opinion? I agree that we should award the degree Specialty 190005. My answer is yes, 4. Thank you. Dear Olga Yurievna Shurkova, your opinion? Yes, I think that Olga Vladimirovna deserves awarding the degree of Candidate of Psychological Science, Specialty 190005, Social Psychology. I vote for. Dila Yelena Yevgenievna Vaknin. I vote for awarding the degree. Thank you. Dictor, Dr. Raid.
Yes, I vote for awarding the degree. In favor, yes.
Thanks a lot for your decision.
Thank you. As a chairman, Gurieva Svetlana Zakhodovna, I vote for. My opinion is positive. Now, counting the votes. Thus, dear council members and colleagues, let me inform you that out of 5 voting members, 5 voted for awarding the degree, no one voted against, and no one abstained. Thus, the decision to award to Felsendorff Olga Vladimirovna the degree of Candidate of Psychological Science, Academic Specialty 190005, Social Psychology, has been made. Dear Olga Vladimirovna, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for devoting time and attention to my work. First of all, I'd like to thank St. Petersburg University for the opportunity to touch upon history, and special thanks to my academic advisor who inspired me in my work and accompanied me on this journey. The Department of Crisis and Extreme Situations of St. Petersburg University, and especially head of department Nelly Krustalova, and the chairman of the Dissertation Council, and all members of the Dissertation Council, and my sincere thanks to my parents for their support, and my daughter, the sense of happiness for which everything is possible. We congratulate you. I thank all the council members for their work and declare our session closed. Thank you. Please stop broadcasting. Thank you very much. All the best and goodbye. Thank you.